I had a company owner tell me once that you're too pretty. I never understood, but at my next job, I defaulted to slacks and polo shirts like the men, and it was a smoother job experience. This is a common experience for women in male dominated environments. In my book on the unwritten rules of work, there are a few sections where I talk about the experience of women in male dominated environments, particularly women who work in blue collar, because there is this dyad. This is more common than you'd think. Women who work in male dominated environments are expected to fit into masculinity, while men who work in women dominated environments usually emphasize their masculinity. I talk about this in my book on the unwritten rules of work, which is coming back out this summer. The audiobook is pre-released in my school, linked in my bio. As I go through each chapter talking about the unwritten rules, I have sections on how this is influenced by class, neurodivergence, gender, and race. And in the gender section, in a couple of the chapters, I talk about women in blue collar fields, which are almost always male dominated, and how they are pushed to be one of the boys. Then this can backfire in cases of harassment. So, for example, in the chapter on the pressure to be assertive but not too aggressive, which is an unwritten rule, many women in these jobs are expected to conform to not be too sensitive, or so the men don't have to step on eggshells around them. But then if the harassment gets too far, if they become one of the boys so much that they start getting harassed, which makes you wonder what they're doing to the other guys, there have actually been court case rulings where judges have said that Title VII does not apply the same way because more harassment is expected in these fields. And in the book, I talk about how I struggle with this because it's such a stereotype of part of the animalization of the working class. It fits so many stereotypes of why people who are from these backgrounds and who move up into professional environments are so stigmatized and assumed to be unprofessional. To be honest, a lot of this also happens in different ways, but in male-dominated white-collar environments. So I am convinced this is not just a class difference. It gets dismissed that way, it gets portrayed that way, and it carries this stigma for people from poor backgrounds as they move up. But it's a gender thing. I also talk about in the book, fellas, how men who are in women-dominated fields can report worse mental health. Also, these men tend to move up very quickly. It's called the glass escalator effect. So it's not utopia. But they also, part of the mental health reasoning is because since these men are in women dominated fields, that they might struggle with their own perceptions of their masculinity, and they tend to overemphasize it in these work environments. But it also works for them because our leadership stereotype culturally is often a man. Even in women dominated fields, when you get to the top of the pyramid of who runs the place, usually a man. I have heard from several men who work in nursing or teaching who have said that they feel bullied by their women coworkers. Don't have any research on that though. That has been just anecdotal data that I have heard from and who are either clients or on here. So I don't know if it's a broader phenomenon because there are always exceptions, but open to hearing your stories if that's the case. Or if people have expertise in this, please share.